Before we begin tonight's story, if you enjoy creepy tales, haunted mysteries, and late-night horror stories, make sure to like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps keep these terrifying stories alive. And who knows, maybe the next story could be even darker than this. 1. Now turn off the lights, get comfortable, and let us step into tonight's nightmare. The House Behind Black Hollow. Chapter 1, The Road That Wasn't on the Map. In the northern part of Pennsylvania, where the pine trees grow so thick that sunlight has to fight its way through the branches, there was a road that most people avoided. It was not marked on newer maps. GPS would sometimes show it for a few seconds, then erase it as if the signal had made a mistake. Locals called it Black Hollow Road, though no official sign carried that name anymore. For 23-year-old Ethan Miller, that road was supposed to be a shortcut. He was driving home from Pittsburgh after visiting his older sister. It was almost midnight, and rain had been falling for hours. The highway was blocked because of an accident, so his phone suggested a detour through the backwoods. Turn right in 200 feet, the GPS said. Ethan slowed his old silver Toyota and looked out through the windshield. The right turn was barely visible, hidden between two leaning trees. There was no streetlight, no sign, only a narrow road covered with wet leaves. He frowned. This better not be some horror movie. Nonsense, he muttered. Still, he turned. The moment his tires touched Black Hollow Road, the radio changed. Static swallowed the song that had been playing. Then came a soft clicking sound, like fingernails tapping glass. Ethan reached for the dial. Great. No signal. The road twisted deeper into the woods. Trees crowded both sides like silent people watching him pass. His headlights cut through the rain, but beyond the beams, everything was black. After 10 minutes, Ethan noticed something strange. The GPS showed no route. The screen was blank except for a spinning circle. He tapped it. No service. A chill moved across his shoulders. He kept driving. 5 minutes later, he saw a mailbox. It stood crooked on the right side of the road, half buried in weeds. The paint had peeled away, but Ethan could still read the faded letters. Hollow House. No. 13. Behind the mailbox was a driveway. At the end of it, far back among the trees, stood a house. It was large, old, and pale, with narrow windows that reflected his headlights like dead eyes. The roof sagged in the middle. The porch leaned forward as if the house was tired of standing. Ethan slowed down. Something was standing on the porch. A woman. She wore a long white dress soaked by rain. Her dark hair covered most of her face. She was barefoot. Ethan's breath caught. The woman raised one hand. Not waving. Pointing at him. Then his engine died. The headlights flickered once, twice, and went out. Inside the car, everything became dark. Ethan sat frozen, listening to the rain hammer the roof. Then came 3 knocks on the passenger window. Knock. 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 He turned his head slowly. No one was there. The engine suddenly came back to life. The headlights flashed on. The porch was empty. Ethan did not think. He slammed his foot on the gas and drove. But the road did not lead him out. It led him back to the mailbox. Hollow House. No. 13. He stared at it, his hands trembling on the steering wheel. No, he whispered. No, no, no. He turned around and drove the opposite way. 10 minutes later, he passed the same mailbox again. This time, the woman was standing beside it. Closer. Her face was still hidden by wet hair, but Ethan could see her mouth. She was smiling. Chapter 2, The Motel Clerk. By the time Ethan found the motel, his phone battery was almost dead and his mind was breaking. The building appeared out of nowhere at the edge of the forest. A red neon sign buzzed above the office. Black Hollow Motel. Vacancy. Ethan parked crookedly near the entrance and ran through the rain. Inside, the office smelled of dust, old coffee, and cigarette smoke. A small television played static in the corner. Behind the counter sat an elderly man with thin gray hair and cloudy eyes. He looked up as Ethan entered. "You took the road," the man said. Ethan froze. "What?" "Black Hollow Road." The old man's voice was flat. "You took it." Ethan swallowed. "I got lost. My car kept looping back. There was a house." The old man stood so quickly that his chair scraped the floor. "Did you stop?" "No." "Did she speak to you?" Ethan's throat tightened. "Who?" The old man stared at him. "The woman in white." For a moment, only the rain spoke. Then Ethan laughed nervously. "Look, I do not know what kind of local ghost story this is, but I just need a room and maybe a phone." The old man slowly reached beneath the counter and pulled out a brass key. "Room 6. Ethan took it. "Phone's dead," the man said. "Storm knocked the line out." "Of course it did." The old man leaned forward. "Listen carefully. Lock your door. Close the curtains. Do not open the door after 3:13 a.m. no matter what you hear." Ethan looked at him. "Why 3:13? The old man did not answer. He only pointed toward the rooms. Ethan stepped back into the rain and hurried to room 6. The room was small and smelled of damp carpet. There was a bed with a faded green blanket, a wooden chair, a mirror, and a Bible in the drawer. The wallpaper had yellowed with age. Ethan locked the door, pushed the chair under the handle, and closed the curtains. He plugged in his phone. No power. He cursed softly and sat on the bed. His hands were still shaking. He told himself it was exhaustion, stress, bad weather. Maybe he had seen some homeless woman near an abandoned house. Maybe the road had confused him. But deep down, he knew. The road had not confused him. The road had trapped him. At 2:47 a.m., Ethan woke to the sound of someone crying. It came from outside his room. A woman's voice. Soft. Broken. "Please." Ethan opened his eyes. The room was freezing. "Please help me." He sat up slowly. The voice came from just beyond the door. "Ethan." His blood turned cold. She knew his name. The doorknob turned once. The chair held it shut. "Ethan," the woman whispered. "I am so cold." He reached for his phone. Still dead. The digital clock beside the bed blinked. 3:12 a.m. Ethan held his breath. The crying stopped. Then something scratched the door. Long, slow lines. From top to bottom. The clock changed. 3:13 a.m. A knock came. Knock. 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 Ethan covered his mouth to keep from screaming. Then the voice changed. It was no longer a woman. It was his sister. "Ethan, open the door. I had an accident." Tears filled his eyes. His sister's voice trembled outside. Please. It hurts. I need you. Ethan stood. He took one step toward the door. Then he remembered the old man's warning. Do not open the door after 3:13 a.m. He backed away. The voice became angry. Open the door, Ethan. The doorknob shook violently. The chair scraped across the floor. Open the door. Ethan grabbed the Bible from the drawer. And held it against his chest, not because he was religious, but because it was the only thing in the room that felt human. The pounding stopped. Silence returned. Then something whispered from behind him. You should have helped her. Ethan turned. In the mirror, the woman in white stood behind him. But when he spun around, the room was empty. Chapter 3, The Story of Hollow House. At sunrise, Ethan ran to the office. The old man was already awake, pouring coffee into a chipped mug. She came, Ethan said. The old man nodded. She always comes. What is she? The old man looked older in the morning. Light. Her name was Abigail Holloway. He opened a drawer and took out an old newspaper clipping. The paper was yellow and fragile. The headline read, Mother and 3 children vanish from Hollow House. Husband found hanged in barn. Ethan read the article with cold fingers. In 1978, Abigail Holloway lived in the house on Black Hollow Road with her husband, Thomas, and their 3 children. Thomas was a preacher, but people said something had changed in him after his youngest child died of fever. He began speaking about voices in the walls. He claimed the house had chosen his family. One winter night, neighbors heard screams from the Holloway property. By morning, Thomas was found hanging in the barn. Abigail and the 2 remaining children were gone. No bodies were ever found. Ethan looked up. So she is haunting the road. The old man's mouth tightened. No. She is not haunting it. He paused. She is still trying to leave. Ethan felt sick. What does that mean? The old man poured coffee but did not drink it. The house keeps people. Sometimes for a night. Sometimes forever. It shows you someone you love. Someone you lost. Someone you failed. Then it waits for you to open the door. And if you do, the old man finally looked at him. You become part of it. Ethan remembered the scratches on the motel door. Why me? The old man gave a sad smile. Everyone asks that. Ethan stepped back. I am leaving. You can try. I will drive until I find the highway. The old man shook his head. Black Hollow does not let go that easily. Ethan ignored him. He left the office, got into his car, and started the engine. This time, the GPS worked. A route appeared. 2 hours to home. Ethan almost laughed with relief. He pulled onto the road and drove fast. The sky was gray. The forest looked normal. Now, just trees and mist and wet earth. After 20 minutes, he saw a familiar mailbox. Hollow House. NO. 13. He slammed the brakes. No. The house waited at the end of the driveway. This time, the front door was open, and from inside came the sound of a child laughing. Ethan's phone rang. He nearly dropped it. The screen showed his sister's name. Lily. He answered. Lily. At first there was only static. Then a small voice whispered. She is in the basement. The call ended. Ethan stared at the house. His sister was alive. She was safe in Ohio. He knew that. But the voice had not sounded like Lily. It had sounded like a child. A child trapped underground. Ethan gripped the steering wheel. Then he made the worst decision of his life. He got out of the car. Chapter 4, Inside the House. The porch groaned beneath Ethan's feet. The smell hit him before he entered, mold, dust, and something rotten beneath the floorboards. Inside, the house was dark despite the morning outside. The hallway stretched too far, longer than the house should have allowed. Old portraits hung on the walls, their faces scratched away. "Hello," Ethan called. His voice died quickly. A child giggled somewhere below. He found the basement door near the kitchen. It was painted black. Carved into the wood were dozens of names. Some were old, nearly faded. Some looked fresh. Ethan saw a name near the bottom that made his stomach twist. Ethan Miller. The letters were wet, as if freshly cut. He stumbled back. Behind him, a floorboard creaked. The woman in white stood at the end of the hallway. Now Ethan could see her face. Her skin was pale and swollen, like she had drowned. Her eyes were black holes. Her mouth was stretched into a smile too wide for a human face. "Help my children," she whispered. Ethan could not move. "Please," she said. Then she pointed to the basement door. Ethan's hand reached for the knob before his mind could stop it. The basement stairs descended into darkness. Each step groaned. At the bottom was a room made of stone. The air was cold and wet. On the far wall, 3 small beds stood side by side. 2 were occupied. Not by bodies. By shadows shaped like children. They sat perfectly still, facing the wall. The 3rd bed was empty. Ethan heard breathing behind him. He turned. A little boy stood in the corner. He wore old pajamas, stained with dirt. "Are you real?" Ethan whispered. The boy tilted his head. "Are you?" Ethan backed away. The boy pointed to the empty bed. "Mother says you can sleep there." "No. She said you came because you were lonely." Ethan shook his head. "I am not lonely." The boy smiled sadly. "Everyone who comes here is lonely." The shadows on the beds began to turn. Slowly. Their heads twisted toward Ethan. They had no faces. Only mouths. All of them opened at once and spoke in his sister's voice. "Why did not you save me?" Ethan screamed and ran up the stairs. The basement door slammed shut behind him. The hallway had changed. The front door was gone. In its place was a wall covered in old family photographs. Ethan ran from room to room. The windows would not open. The back door led into another hallway. The kitchen led into the living room, then back into the kitchen. The house was folding in on itself. Then he heard the old man's voice. "Ethan." He turned. The motel clerk stood outside a window. His face pale with fear. "Break the mirror," the old man shouted. "What?" "The mirror is the way out." The woman in white appeared behind the old man. Her hand rose. The old man's eyes widened. Then he was dragged backward into the mist. Ethan grabbed a chair and ran to the hallway mirror. In the glass, the house looked different. The walls were clean. Candles burned. A family sat at a dinner table. Thomas Holloway stood at the head of the table, smiling. Abigail sat beside him, crying silently. The children stared at empty plates. Thomas looked directly at Ethan through the mirror. "You should not be here," he said. Ethan lifted the chair. Thomas smiled wider. You opened the door. Ethan smashed the mirror. The sound was like 1,000 voices. Screaming. The walls shook. The house went dark. Chapter 5, The Thing in the Walls. When Ethan woke, he was lying on the road. Beside his car. Rain fell softly. His phone had power again. It was 6:06 a.m. He sat up, shaking. The house was still there, but it looked farther away now, almost faded behind the trees. The motel clerk's body lay near the mailbox. Ethan crawled toward him. The old man was barely breathing. I told you, he whispered. It does not. Let go. I broke the mirror, Ethan said. The old man coughed blood. You broke one. Ethan looked toward the house. How many are there? The old man smiled weakly. As many as it needs. His hand closed around Ethan's wrist. Listen. Abigail is not the evil one. Ethan stared at him. Then what is? The old man's eyes moved toward the house. The thing Thomas heard in the walls. A sound came from the forest. Low. Deep. Like a giant animal breathing underground. The old man's grip tightened. It was here before the house. Before the road. Before any of us. The Holloways fed it grief. Now it hungers for memory. What does that mean? It does not eat bodies. The old man's voice faded. It eats the people who remember you. Then he died. Ethan stood slowly. His phone rang again. Lily. This time, he answered with shaking hands. Ethan, his sister said. Where are you? I have been calling all night. Relief almost broke him. Lily, listen to me. I need you to stay on the phone. What happened? I got lost. There is a house. I think. The line crackled. Lily went silent. Lily. A different voice answered. Soft. Female. Wet. She won't remember you for long. The call ended. Ethan looked at his phone. His sister's contact name changed. Unknown caller. He opened his photo gallery. Pictures of Lily were disappearing one by one. In some, her face blurred. In others, Ethan was standing alone. No, he whispered. The house was not just trapping him. It was erasing him. Chapter 6, The Last Door. Ethan knew he could not run. Not anymore. If the thing in the walls erased him from memory, there would be no rescue, no missing person report, no family waiting. He would become another carved name on the basement door. He searched the old man's pockets and found a key. Small. Black. Cold as ice. A tag hung from it. Room 13. But the motel had only 12 rooms. Ethan drove back to the Black Hollow motel. In daylight, it looked abandoned. The neon sign was broken. Windows were boarded up. The office door hung open. Inside, dust covered everything. The television was gone. So was the counter. On the back wall was a narrow door Ethan had not noticed before. A brass number was nailed to it. 13. He used the black key. The door opened into a room filled with mirrors. Hundreds of them. Small mirrors, tall mirrors, broken mirrors, antique mirrors, bathroom mirrors, hand mirrors. Every wall reflected Ethan from 100 angles, and in every reflection, the woman in white stood behind him. But in the real room, he was alone. At the center of the room was a wooden box. Inside was a diary. Abigail Holloway's diary. Ethan opened it. The final pages were written in shaking handwriting. Thomas says the voice is God, but it speaks from the walls. It knows things no living thing should know. It wears our voices. It calls the children at night. It says grief opens doors. It says a house is only a mouth if someone is willing to scream inside it. Ethan turned the page. If anyone finds this, do not trust my face. It uses me. It uses anyone it has swallowed. The only way to wound it is to make it remember itself. Below that was a drawing. A tree. Not a normal tree. Its roots twisted beneath the house, forming the shape of a human skull. Under the drawing were 4 words. Burn the root cellar. The room began to shake. Every mirror reflected a different nightmare. In one, Ethan saw Lily crying because she no longer knew his name. In another, he saw himself as a child, standing alone at his father's funeral. In another, he saw the basement bed, waiting for him. Then all the reflections spoke together. You are already forgotten. Ethan closed the diary. No, he said. He took a lighter from the old man's desk, and ran back toward Hollow House. The house knew. The road stretched longer. The trees leaned inward. Voices followed him. His mother. His sister. His dead father. Every voice begged him to stop. But Ethan kept going. He reached the house as the sky turned black. The front door opened by itself. Inside, the walls pulsed like flesh. The portraits whispered. The floorboards bent beneath his feet. He found the basement door. His name was carved deeper now. Ethan Miller. Beloved son. Forgotten. Brother. He kicked the door open and descended. The children were waiting. Abigail stood behind them. But now Ethan knew it was not really Abigail. It was the house wearing her sorrow like skin. Stay, she whispered. No one is waiting for you. Ethan held up the diary. My sister is. The woman's face cracked. Behind the pale skin was darkness. Something huge moved inside the walls. Ethan ran past the beds to a small wooden door at the back of the basement. The root cellar. He opened it. Below was a tunnel filled with roots. They twisted through the earth like black veins. In the center was a massive root, shaped like a heart, beating slowly. With each beat, Ethan heard memories. His mother teaching him to ride a bike. Lily laughing at Christmas. His father calling him brave. The thing had stolen them. It was keeping them alive inside itself. Ethan poured old kerosene from a rusted can across the roots. The house screamed. The woman in white crawled down the tunnel. Behind him, her limbs bending the wrong way. Ethan, she said in Lily's voice. Please. Do not leave me. He flicked the lighter. For a second, the flame was tiny and weak. Then it caught. Fire raced across the roots. The scream that followed did not sound human. It sounded like the forest, the road, the house, and every lost soul inside it. Crying out at once. The woman in white burned away, revealing Abigail's real face for one brief moment. She looked tired. Grateful. Run, she whispered. Ethan ran. The basement collapsed behind him. The walls split open. Hands reached from the wallpaper. The children's shadows screamed as they dissolved into smoke. Ethan burst through the front door as the House folded inward. Windows shattered. The roof sank. The porch cracked. Then Hollow House burned with blue fire. Not orange. Not red. Blue. Like the flame of something ancient being. Forced to die. Chapter 7, What Came Home. Ethan was found 2 days later walking along a highway 50 miles away. A truck driver saw him barefoot, covered in ash, and speaking to people who were not there. At the hospital, doctors said he had suffered shock, dehydration, and exposure. His sister Lily came to see him. When she entered the room, Ethan cried. She hugged him tightly. "I remember you," she said. And for a while, Ethan believed it was over. The authorities searched for Black Hollow Road. They found nothing. No house. No motel. No burned foundation. No body of an old motel clerk. Only trees. Ethan tried to move on. He returned home. He got a new phone. He stopped driving at night. He covered every mirror in his apartment. For 3 months, nothing happened. Then one evening, Lily called him. Her voice sounded strange. "Ethan," she said, "did Dad have a brother?" Ethan frowned. "No. Why?" "I found an old photo in Mom's attic." She sent it to him. The picture showed Ethan's father as a young man, standing beside a woman in a white dress. Behind them was Hollow House. Ethan's hands went numb. A text appeared beneath the photo. "Do you remember now?" Then came a knock at his apartment door. Knock. 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 Ethan did not move. The lights flickered. A voice whispered from the hallway. Not Abigail's. Not Lily's. Not his father's. It was his own voice. "Open the door, Ethan." He stepped backward. The covered mirror in his living room began to shake. The cloth slipped. In the glass, Ethan saw the hallway outside his apartment. But something was wrong. The hallway was inside Hollow House. And standing behind him in the reflection was a tall man in a preacher's black suit. Thomas Holloway smiled. "You burned the roots," he said. "But you forgot the seed." Ethan turned around. No one was there. When he looked back at the mirror, Thomas was closer. His face pressed against the glass from the other side. The mirror cracked. A black root pushed through. Then another. Then another. Ethan grabbed a hammer from the kitchen drawer and smashed the mirror until his hands bled. The roots stopped moving. For now. Outside, police sirens wailed in the distance. Ethan looked down at the broken glass. In every shard, he saw a different road. A different house. A different door. And in one small piece of mirror, he saw Lily standing on a porch in the rain. She was barefoot. She was wearing white. She raised one hand. Not waving. Pointing. At him. Chapter 8, The New Map. 1 year later, people began disappearing. Across rural America, a college student vanished in West Virginia after following a GPS detour. A delivery driver disappeared in Kentucky after reporting a woman on the road. A family in Ohio drove into fog and never came out. Each case was different. But every missing person had one thing in common. Before they disappeared, their phones showed the same location. Black Hollow Road. Ethan collected every article. Every police report. Every blurry photo. He knew the truth. The house was gone, but the thing beneath. It had not died. It had spread. Not through soil. Through memory. Through fear. Through every person who heard the story. And imagined the road. That was how it traveled. That was how it grew. One night, Ethan sat at his desk and began writing everything down. The motel. The woman. The basement. The roots. The mirrors. He wrote until sunrise. When he finished, he printed the pages and placed them in a metal box. Then he burned his computer. Lily begged him to stop. "You are scaring me," she said. Ethan looked at her with tired eyes. "I am trying to make sure you remember me." She cried. He wanted to comfort her, but he could not, because behind her, in the dark window, he saw a road that should not have been there. And at the end of that road, a house waited. The next morning, Ethan disappeared. His apartment door was locked from the inside. The windows were shut. There was no sign of forced entry. Only a pile of broken mirror glass on the floor. And one page left on his desk. It read: "If you ever find yourself on a road that is not on the map, do not stop. If you see the woman in white, do not listen. If someone you love knocks after 3:13 a.m., do not open the door. And if you hear your own voice calling from the other side, run. Because the house does not need walls anymore. It only needs you to remember it." Epilogue. Last winter, a man named Daniel Price was driving through Pennsylvania during a snowstorm. His GPS lost signal. Then it returned with a new route. A narrow road appeared between the trees. He almost ignored it. But the highway was closed, and he was tired, so he turned. The road was quiet. Too quiet. After several miles, Daniel saw a mailbox leaning in the snow. The letters were almost covered, but he could still read them. Hollow House. No. 13. Daniel slowed down. At the end of the driveway stood a house. Large. Old. Pale. A woman waited on the porch. She wore a long white dress. Her dark hair covered her face. Daniel's radio changed to static. Then a voice came through the speakers. A young man's voice. Weak. Afraid. Don't stop. Daniel froze. The woman raised one hand. Not waving. Pointing. At him. Then something knocked from inside his trunk. Knock. 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 Daniel whispered, "Who is there?" From the trunk came his daughter's voice. "Daddy, let me out." But Daniel's daughter had died 6 years ago. His foot slipped from the brake. The car rolled forward. The house opened its front door. And deep inside the walls, something old smiled in the dark.